am going to talk about how Gandhi and Nehru have differed on the question of development. Gandhi and Nehru were both key leaders, I think, most important leaders in the Congress party, and also one of the prominent leaders of the India's nationals movement. After independence, the economic model which India should pursue was debated, and Gandhi and Nehru differed largely on the economic model questions. So, what I am going to do today is to talk about briefly Gandhian model and Nehruvian model, and then I would argue that Nehruvian model was the main principle, and Gandhian model was overlooked after independence, and India went for industrializations, heavy industrializations. And these policies of Nehru, which was followed in post-independence India, has largely benefited the rich. It has benefited the middle classes, but the marginalized sections, particularly Adivasi, were the biggest sufferers, and the primary health and educations were not paid much attention by the economic model of Nehru, and even agriculture was also not paid sufficient attention, but large scale industrializations was the main focus during the Nehruvian period. So you could ask me these questions, that how this economic model of Nehru and Gandhi are going to be useful for this course for ecology and environmental studies. So my argument would be that no economic policy is complete without the discussion of ecological factor, and no study of environment is complete without taking the questions of equity, economic model, planning, distributions, and the conflict over resources. Who own resources and who are denied resources should be the key concern for any environmental or ecological study. So let me first talk about Gandhi. Gandhi in his ideology, Gandhi in his principle has opposed big industry. He opposed industrialism in the manner of the West, and he stressed village based economy. Gandhi supported village community. He said that it should be revitalized through craft productions, and he believed that decent livelihood should be given to the people living in rural areas. So Gandhian model was the one which believes in decentralized economy, which believes in local, which believes in Swadeshi, rural based, job oriented, and Gandhiji also led a stress on labor. So even his economic planning and his educational planning are very much linked to the Swadeshi movement, self-sufficiency. You might have seen Charkha, Gandhiji with the Charkha. So the Charkha is the symbol of self-sufficiency, and it is also the expressions of economic nationalism. So Gandhiji opposed British rule not because it was taken up by the Britishers. He did not want just the Britishers to leave the country and hand over the resources and the government to Indians, but he believed that the policy, the system should be thoroughly changed, and instead of building India on the model of the Western countries and Western industrial model, India should follow largely village-based economy. But Nehru did not support Gandhi. Nehru differed with Gandhi, and Nehru believed, as he was influenced by Fabian socialism, he was influenced by modernizations and big planning. So Nehru believed that industry, heavy industry, will be answer to everything, and he believed that the backwardness of India can be addressed if India adopts the policy of big industrialization. So he supported construction of the dam, big industries, and he supported rapid industrializations. So in October 1945, Nehru wrote a letter to Gandhiji and he said that I read your book Hind Swaraj and I have only a vague picture in mind. These are the words of Nehru. But even when I read it 20 or more years ago, it seemed to me completely unreal. So for Nehru, Gandhian model of economy is unreal, and he said in opposition to Gandhi that the village, normally speaking, is backward intellectually and culturally, and no progress can be made from a backward environment. So Nehru opposed Gandhian model. Nehru believed that it is unreal, it cannot be taken forward, and the village based economy cannot be taken up seriously because it is culturally backward and intellectually backward, and in backward environment country cannot progress. So Nehruvian model was followed and it has little regards for the Gandhian model, and Nehru followed big industry. Nehru followed rapid modernizations, rapid industrializations, and he called industry, dam, big factory as temples of modern India. So Nehru gave primary seat to Indian industrial classes. Nehru and Congress party was largely financed by the capitalist classes, and Nehru did not share much of what Gandhi has said. So Nehru adopted large scale industrialization, and the slogan was industrialize or perish. You have got only two options: either you go for industrialization and develop the country, or you perish and become backward. This was the slogan during the second 5-year plan, and in Nehruvian planning, you would see that after second year plan, more and more focus was given to industry, and agriculture was largely missed out, where majority of the people, I think 75% of the populations, were into the agricultural sectors, and it was given less attention. So was the case with primary health and education. And I remember that Paul Brass in his book Politics Since Independence has criticized Nehruvian policy for for largely ignoring the primary health and primary educations. So development was achieved, and what has happened that the middle classes and rich people were the largely beneficiaries of the Nehruvian state, but the marginalized communities suffered, particularly the Adivasi area. So in Adivasi area, dams were created. In the Adivasi area, big industries were put up, and people from the outside of the region went to Adivasi area, they migrated to Adivasi area, and then demography was changed, and the outsiders who were non-Adivasi took control over the local resources. On the other hand, the locals, the Adivasis, were, I think, rendered people without any resources, with little resources, and they were pushed out to look for the cities and work there as urban poor or domestic laborers or workers. So you could see how migration is happening both ways. While the non-Adivasi people go to Adivasi area and they take control over that, on the other hand, the Adivasi, the locals, are rendered resourceless, and they are forced to migrate, and they become vagabond, beggars, workers, and destitute. So this is the dark side of the industrializations and Nehruvian policies, and the jobs were not much created. Unemployment became a big issue, inequality arose, and along with that, environmental pollution was also there. And developing countries, particularly the leaders from the developing countries, they did not pay much attention to environmental protections, and any talk of environmental issues were dismissed by the leaders in the developing countries as if that they were being financed and they were being carried forward by the Western forces, who are not interested in seeing developing country become industrialized. So the questions of industrializations, the excuse of industrialization was used to completely ignore, or to ignore to a large extent, the ecological issues, and all those, and or the large amount of the discourse around environment was dismissed as if that it were carried out by a colonialist project to keep South backward. So poverty was there, poverty persisted, and growth was there, but it could not create enough jobs. So there was a rise of inequality. So in 1990s, around 1980s, in fact, B.B. Bohra wrote a very influential paper, and he talked about how our forest is turning divide of vegetations, and how the questions of let's say ecological crisis, poverty, then waterlogging, soil erosion, deforestation, the loss of topsoils are big threat to the country. So B.B. Bohra's brought the issue of ecological damage to the forefront, but largely we should try to, we can say it safely that still environmental issues are not paid much attention in the din of the growth story. So what is happening, that growth, higher growth are seen as the mark of development, but the issue, the larger questions are not being raised. How this growth has been achieved? Are growths and developments are they achieved by destroying resources, by polluting our rivers, by damaging our ecology? If they are done by selling natural resources at throwaway prices, if growth is achieved by creating unequal access to resources, then this growth cannot be sustained for long, and environmental degradation will be very costly to the country, and the whole nation has to pay, and it will lead to destruction of the resources and loss of the life. So the question is, which I started in the beginning, that development and ecology, for poverty, employment, and how the marginalized people having access to resources, these issues should be seen in close connections. I think they are all interlinked, and no debate of economy can be done without ecology, and no debate on ecology can be complete without taking the largest questions of political economy, distributions, productions, and the questions of resources, who are having resources and who have been denied resources. Economists largely talk about the increase of the wealth. Your job is to problematize that debate by saying that, okay, you have earned money, we also want country to earn more and more money, but how have you earned money? How has the growth been achieved? And what about ecological factor? What about environmental factor? You have to keep in mind the story of a man and the golden goose. Okay, that I need one egg every day, and if you take one egg every day, then it is sustainable. But when we become greedy, and when we go to, let's say, kill that golden goose, then next day we will not get the egg. So what is happening in India or in other developing country, that there is a sense of competition. Every country is trying to do better than another country, and there is a madness about the growth rate, and that growth rate is not giving the correct picture. So how the growth rate is achieved? Growth rate is achieved by selling natural resources at a throwaway price without holding people accountable for pollution which they are creating. For example, this is forest, and I have decided to sell forest. Okay, so, and I am selling this forest at a throwaway price, and by selling this forest, the income of a particular region has been high, and then next year I saw that great achievement has been done. But you have to also keep in mind as an environmentalist that, okay, if all those trees are cut, what will be the side effect of that environmental degradation? So there is a need to look at growth from ecological point of view. Okay, you have earned money, but how have you earned? Is it sustainable? What about pollution which is caused? So if you look into the issue of pollution, and then the amount which is needed to clean it, the amount which is needed to make the earth again green. If you look into those costs, and when you reduce those costs from the total income, then you have got a very different picture. For example, you can work only, let's say 6 hours. I will give you. You can work only 6 hours. And by working 6 hours, let's say you earn 500 rupees a day. And I work 6 hours and I work, let's say 700 rupees a day. And then one day you have decided that I want to earn more from Abhay. So you start working 12 hours a day. Then you want to earn more money than that. Then you start working 16 hours a day. So if you work 16 hours a day, definitely your income is increasing from 600 rupees to 800 rupees to 1000 rupees, let's say 1500 rupees per day. So your income has increased almost 3 times. But what will happen, that over the period of the time, you will have ill effect on your body. And after, let's say 2 years, doctor has said that you have developed some serious illness and now you have to rest for 2 years, and you have to spend, let's say 2 lakh rupees for the medical treatment. Now when you look into the medical treatment and the amount of energy which you have spent on, let's say, recovery, and the year which you have not earned anything, and if you look into those losses, and then you will realize that the person who was earning 600 rupees per month, and he was not putting so much burden on his health, was doing much better than what I have done. So the point which I am trying to tell you, that the industrial policies, the economic policies, the growth story are completely overlooking how they have been achieved and what about the environmental issues. For example, if Ganga is polluted, let's suppose if there are 100 factories on the bank of Ganga, and if the income of, let's say, industry, okay, has increased, okay, but if they are allowed to dam, okay, if they are allowed to throw their waste pollutants into river, then you tell me, is it a growth story? Because now what will happen, that you have to spend a large amount of money to clean Ganga. So basically the point which is being told here, that growth story must be looked at from ecological point of view. So if you look into the account, how people have suffered, how much displacement has been done, how forest has been destroyed, what about the issue of river pollution, then the same growth story will appear very different. So this is the point which I am trying to argue, that the earlier policy was not very sensitive towards industrialization. There was only, you could say, only one thinking: this, develop this country, make it great, make it look like, let's say, advanced industrial country of the West. And you have, I will share with you the reading of one person, Bohra, and maybe that in next class I will be discussing his paper. So Bohra wrote a paper in 1980s, and he was, I think, bureaucrat, okay, and he first time wrote a paper. I think the paper was published in Economic and Political Weekly, and Bohra has brought the issue of environmental degradation to the mainstream, and he has said that the policy which we have followed, his full name is B.B. Bohra, he said that only 42% of the area designated as forest is actually under adequate trees and grass. The rest is more or less completely devoid of vegetation. So he first time in 1980s, through writing, through his paper, B.B. Bohra, he is very important person. He was pioneer in changing government policies as far as ecology and environment is concerned. So he wrote a paper and he was talking about the serious issue of how our forest is becoming devoid of vegetation, and Bohra also raised the issue of soil erosion, water lodging, salinization, and the issue of deforestation and the loss of topsoil were also raised. You have to keep in mind that soil formation is a very slow process. You know better than me. I think it takes maybe 900 years or more than that to have a few inches of soil formations. But because of deforestation and so many wrong policies, we are losing, okay, and once the topsoil is lost, it will create big problem. And you know what is one of the dark sides of the dam, that through this river through river or flood, soil is also carried, but once you have this dam, then the river will not be able to carry soil, and then what will happen, that it will have negative impact on agriculture also. So the Vora and Vora's paper was very influential, and then Ramchandra Guha and Gadgil is saying the kind of economic policies which was being pursued by the government and the modernization project, they have all these policies have had negative impact on the life for the marginalized people, okay, and they were all carried forward by the dominant sections of the society. So inequality arose because of those policies, and you have to keep in mind Center for Science and Environmental Report 1985. This report is very important. Okay. This report is very important. In this report, it is mentioned on page number 368 that bamboo was sold at rupees 15 a ton to paper mill owners in Karnataka. So basically this report is talking about that how the resources were not given to people, okay. In the same way, there was inequality as far as access to resources is concerned. So the mill owners were able to get bamboo at rupees 15 per ton, but the basket weavers got the same bamboo at rupees 1200 per ton. Do you see the difference? What this report is talking about? The report says that why bamboo, which is needed for making paper, and you are a mill owner, so you are given bamboo and you are paying just 15 rupees for 1 ton, for just 15 rupees. But on the other hand, this basket weavers, they have to pay 1200 rupees. So the rich is paying just 15 and common man is paying 1200 rupees. So you have to also keep in mind how resources are distributed. Your study of environmental science is not complete if you do not pay attention to how resources are distributed. So you will find that the rich people who are going to establish their factory, they get land at a throwaway price, but poor people are displaced for their houses in the name of beautification of the city. So you should keep in mind also the Chipko movement. What was the Chipko movement? That the local people were denied access to products from the jungle, from the forest, but commercial companies were allowed to use them. So that has created problem. So what so far we have talked about, that the Nehruvian policy followed industrialization. Nehruvian policy largely benefited the rich people, the capitalist classes, and the Gandhian model of economy was not taken seriously by Nehru, who called himself a big disciple of Gandhi. And Gandhi has talked about a small scale industry, okay, village based economy, but these issues were ignored, and that is why we have got inequality. So Nehru wrote a letter to Gandhiji in 1945, and Nehru has said, it is many years since I read Hind Swaraj and I have only a vague picture in my mind, but even when I read it 20 or more years ago, it seemed to me completely unreal. A village, normally speaking, is backward intellectually and culturally, and no progress can be made from a backward environment. So Gandhiji's idea of village economy was criticized by Nehruji. Nehruji wrote a letter in 1945 in October by saying that Gandhiji, I read your book Hind Swaraj long time back. Okay, many things I don't remember, but yeah, I know what you wrote it, and you are talking about village economy, but I don't support it because village is backward intellectually and culturally, and we need to follow a different policy. So the way Nehru followed, let's say, economic model that has benefited the rich, the dominant classes, but on the other hand, the dark side of that development is not much talked about. Middle classes, you know, educations, primary educations and health, they were ignored by Nehru. This is the criticism of many political scientists. I think we have studied Paul Brass. He is an American political scientist. He died recently. So his book Indian Politics Since Independence is very important. It is taught at undergraduate and graduate level. So I remember it. In that book, Indian Independence Since Independence, Paul Brass has criticized Nehruvian policy, that how primary education and health, they were being ignored. So the point is simple. If you have not understood anything so far, in this class, I am trying to say 4 or 5 very simple things. India got independence in 1947. By the time of independence, there was also a debate that which model of development is to be followed. So there were Gandhian paradigm and Nehruvian paradigm. So the Gandhian paradigm, the Gandhian understanding was that let's have job oriented economy. Let's have rural economy. Let's talk about reconstruction of the villages. Let's talk about Swadeshi. Let's talk about a small is beautiful. Okay. Let's go for, let's say, sustainable development. But Nehru and other middle class sections in India, they had a different dream. They wanted to model India on Western economic model. So I have also shared with you the letter Nehru wrote to Gandhi, and he said, oh Gandhiji, you are talking about village economy, it is culturally backward, I am not going to accept it. So Nehru followed industrial model, which has of course developed India, but that development has also impacted the life of the poor people in a bad way. Adivasi community is the worst sufferer of it. Okay, environmental issues is also not looked into. And one thing you have to also keep in mind, that every year the growth rate story is celebrated. But whenever that growth rate story is celebrated, you should also write your argument, your paper, that how the growth has been achieved. So if you do not look into environmental factor and you are only running after earning profit and profit, that in long run it will be disastrous for everybody. You understand what I am trying to say? You have to keep in mind the example of golden goose. If you take egg every day and if you ensure the health of, let's say, hen or goose, then we are doing good thing for to ourselves also, and we are also doing good thing to goose also. But when we go to kill the goose because we are greedy, we want all golden eggs on one day, then we don't only kill goose, but we also kill our development also. And here the Center for Science and Environmental report, which I have cited, that in 1980 report, it has given an example that how resources are not equally shared. So in Karnataka, bamboo was sold to paper mill owner rupees 15 ton, but the basket weavers, poor people, when they need bamboo, the same bamboo is sold in market for rupees 1200 per ton. So the same thing rich people is getting at rupees 12 and 15, and common man is buying it for rupees 1200 rupees. You understand? So almost 100 times more. Poor people are buying the same thing 100 times more than the rich people have bought it. So this is called unequal distribution of the resources.